The Graphic Histories Podcast.
I got bit by a radioactive bug. I tried an experimental drug. Went up for a stroll on a gamma testing range. I found an enchanted hurricane. I made a serum that made me small. I modified the serum so it would make me tall. Radioactive isotope in my eyes. Dying alien helped me accessorize. I gained the proportion and strength of a spider. Now I'm invincible and I can fly. I lost my sight, my other senses were heightened. I'm gonna put on my pajamas and go fight crime.
Hey there, and welcome to the Graphic Histories Podcast. My name is André, your podcast host. Big thanks to Uku the Mock for our theme song, Superpowers, and big thanks to you, gentle listener, for tuning in once again to another show. This is part 2 of my chat with Mark Oakley. Great conversation. We get deeper into the inspirations of his work, specifically Thieves Kings, Star Drop, and his newest project, which is really fun. And yeah, if you enjoyed Conversation 1, you're really going to enjoy Conversation 2. So, fortunately, I'm on a tight time frame today. Can't give you a big, long intro. I want to tell you is that, get out there, experience art of all forms. I mean, if anything comes from this conversation with Mark and I, we really get to enjoy a lot of conversation about art, what it means to make art, how it makes you feel. And, something that's very important to all of us. I think especially those of you who appreciate comics, appreciate sci-fi, books, all those things that art brings us, that we take such joy from. We share a lot of our things that we've seen recently, or things that we are really cherish as far as media goes, and that's all sprinkled throughout this conversation. So make sure to tune in and enjoy. I mean, why do you say make sure? I mean, you're already here. If you're listening to this, you're tuning in. So thank you. All right, here it is, my conversation, part 2 with Mark Oakley.
Yes, so I think there's something in the world that calls us to be excited and to explore certain things. And for whatever reason, I wanted to revisit my childhood. I was channeling a lot of my boyhood adventures into that book. I mean, the main character is like a 14-year-old, and I described a bit of what it was like growing up with a couple of friends in New Brunswick, and in Toronto, it was similar. Like Toronto was a really there was another side to it that was just a little offset. Like behind, I was living in an area where I guess this is a lot of the GTA. It was old glacial till plain. Do you know what that is?
No.
Or basically, the land's all scratched up, and a lot of rocks and soil and clay is deposited by glacial action. And the way erosion works is that you get streets and houses on each side of the street, but behind every house, it was like it backed onto a ravine. And so you can go down 40, 50 feet, and there's a little river at the bottom, and those ravines are all interconnected. And if you take a look at sort of an aerial map, the whole region looked like a set of lungs with all these little tiny rivers all leading to major, bigger arteries that all lead to like the Don Valley. And you could go down your backyard and, as a kid, I didn't get as far as I might have, but I got pretty far. And you could, just by following the water, end up at Lake Ontario without seeing any city. You could all do it in sort of a state of wilderness because it's all trees and ravines and sort of Canadian jungle bush, right? And so that you take that and you just move the map over 1 millimeter, and there's your two Torontos, these two realities. And I spent a lot of time existing in that one without really understanding that you're literally moving between the mortal world and sort of the what Tolkien would call the fairy world, but it was the nuts and bolts one where there's like rusted shopping carts and fairy, and sort of dumped in the back there. And then there was also, when you're downtown Toronto, it's all cement and concrete and pavement with some trees here. Good, there's good forestry in Toronto. I'm not going to knock it for that, but it's mostly city. But even there, the same effect was happening in that you'd have a street and houses, and behind the houses they'd have little garages, and they were like row houses, so a lot of them were connected, and they would back onto these little alleys, and the alleys were it was purely private access to get into your garage. They weren't streets, but for every street like that was numbered and named, there was an alley. So one for one pretty much. And if you decided to just walk down the alleys, you could get all the way downtown again, with a radically different experience to what you picture a city being. And some of these alleys are quite developed. Like there's this in Little Italy, because Toronto is sort of a patchwork of different cultures. I guess they like bocce ball in Italy. Have you ever played bocce ball?
No.
It is so fun. I ran into it at one point, and it's just like that's the best game ever, especially if you've got kids, because it's basically giant marbles.
Oh, really?
It's just
I've heard of it, but I have no idea what it was. It's funny. I should.
we'll have to get together. I'll bring my little bocce ball kit,
Oh, yeah.
and
Sounds
it's
great.
I don't know if I'm playing the rules quite correctly, because there is a numbering system. I could never quite get my head around that, but the basics are just like you throw a little white ball that's the size of a golf ball, and then you have like three colored balls, and each player has like, I got yellow, I have red, I have blue, and you try and throw yours and get them as close to the white ball as possible.
Oh,
And so
okay.
everyone would take a turn, and you're able to get tactical. You could try and knock the other guy's ball out of the way or knock yours closer. And so that's all it is, except it's so fun. And especially Nova Scotian bocce ball, because in Italy they'll have like sand lots that they're all sort of graded sand, and you play. Here there's like, rabbits and puffs of there's coyotes, and you're like playing wilderness bocce ball. Anyway, so I'm walking through this alley at one point, just exploring them, because they're all very, very different. And I guess some wealthy family had bought an entire row of houses. They're like, well, I'm not going to have my daughter move away. She's going to move in next door. I bought that house for her. And their families kind of expand in this Roman Catholic kind of way. And they said, you know what? We're just going to connect all our backyards and make a full-on bocce ball park.
Wow.
And it was like a privately built little park that had hanging lights across like, 6 different backyards worth of space. Like it was like half an acre of just backyard that no one would know about. And it had like stands that had been built by, so an audience could watch, and it had like little concession sort of booths. Maybe I'm projecting my imagination into it, because I just walked past it and kind of gawked a little bit, and then in my brain painted it, right? But that existed, but no one would know about it unless you do these little weird sidewalks. And so that was Toronto. Was like there's the regular city that's on all the maps and everyone knows about, and then there's this weird secret kind of etheric Toronto that just is there for exploring and having adventures. And so I was aware of that and all my childhood adventures of running around in ravines, and just said, this has got to go. I've got to tap into this. Just walking through this makes me excited and feeling like sort of a little bit scared, a little curious. I don't know what's around every corner. How do I, and the thing is, it wasn't even conscious. I was aware, oh yeah, that exists, and that's a wonderful experience. But the emotional sort of stuff, it's all, 90% of us is all subconscious. So it's bubbling under there, and it's saying, you have to draw this. And so I go, okay, I better draw that. And so Thieves and Kings was just tapping into all of those feelings and emotions and trying to put a face to it and build characters that would inhabit that kind of a world, and sort of what sort of adventures and challenges would they find there. And so it was definitely like a soul retrospective. I wasn't trying to make any big political statements. I was just sorting through all the clutter and dry sort of leaves of life up until that point. And it's very, very rich, because I had a very full childhood. So there's always something to write about. And it was, so it was tapping into that, because I wasn't finished loving that part of my life. Now I'm working on, like, I'm looking forward. Like, let me bring up a little thing here. Let's see here. No, that's an old painting. Here we go. So can you see, do you have the camera up again? Okay.
Yep.
So right now, my wife works at I'll say the name. It's a UPS store.
Yep.
And so they're kind of like a franchise that's kind of connected to the actual shipping company. They have the same logo. And so we'll take your parcels, and we'll do your prints, and we'll do all, it's a UPS store. You've been to one of these things.
Oh, there's one in Truro.
And and there's the cartoon version of my wife. And she comes home almost every day, and I say, honey, tell me the UPS store stories. And she goes, well, all right, something. And did anything interesting happening? Oh my God, this lady came in, or whatever. And so it's hilarious. It's basically retail mania.
Yeah.
And and so many people work or have worked in retail that this is something that just connects. And some of them are just like, these are such good stories. I've got to do something with these. And so I decided to start a little 6 panel strip. And I'm not even really sure what I'm going to do with them. I think what I'm going to do is just as I make them, I'm going to start emailing them to all the UPS store locations. And I rebranded it so I won't get sued. I hope that my little
No,
my
no.
my inner lawyer isn't going to get me in trouble, but I call it the it's the U Print and Ship store, so
Mhm.
UPS still, but
Mhm.
and this little cartoon character is a pretty good representation of her boss, her Greg, and he's a really interesting character, and just I'm just gonna every day like that a new story comes home, I'm gonna try and draw it as quickly as I can, and so I came up with a template where I'm at a point now where I'm not focusing on that. It has to be the best artwork in the world. I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to draw like layers where this counter will always be the same and the thing
Mhm.
behind it will be the same and just do a bunch of assets and then just quickly throw characters on top. Because the point is, I want to take the fun of one of these ridiculous stories
Mhm.
and like the very, very first one is one of my favorites. I'm going to bring it up and read it to you just because maybe we can do that. Let's see here. UPS clip number 1.
That's awesome.
Um, anyway, so this is me looking forward and engaging in with the adult world as it is now. There's no magic in it. It's just funny, and I think okay, here we go. I'm reading this to you. Can you see it? Is
Yeah.
it
Oh
on
yeah.
your
Yep. Yep.
right? Great. So there's the Uprint and Ship store. Hello, Uprint and Ship store. Craig speaking. His real name is Greg. So
All right.
he
Oh
goes,
yeah.
how can I help you? And then over the phone, and you're using the telephone little spiky thing, all the little bits of I don't know, craft knowledge is just all
Yeah.
here. Yeah, yeah, this is how you do a phone. I don't have to
Yeah.
learn it or mess around. I never got my package. Says, well, let me have your tracking number or see what I can do. I don't have a tracking number. That's what I was trying to sell the FedEx machine. Says, is your package being sent through FedEx? Yes, and now it's gone. Says, well, we're not FedEx. This is the Uprint and Ship store. Huff. I know. Why do you think I'm calling? The FedEx number was useless. And that is just like, and they say the customer is always right. I don't think she's even a customer. How rude. Let me speak to your supervisor. Like he owns the place. And so, and the thing is, this is real. This happens
Yeah.
every day. You get this madness. And I just want to share this sort of these out of sync with reality little stories in a way that's like lighthearted and fun and every UPS store it's like well his store is UPS number 421 and there's
Yeah.
like 4,000 there's
Oh yeah.
thousands of these shops all across North America, so I figured you know what, I'm just going to send these little things to their inbox and give them a little chuckle, and I don't know if that'll ever turn into money. I don't care, this is fun, and that's what I'm doing right now. That's my latest
Yeah.
project. So but it's a long walk from rooftop
Thieves and
swashbuckling.
Kings. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and Star Drop was kind of interesting too with the kind of fish out of water story.
yes.
Alien princess sort of learning what life on Earth is like. I like stories like those. Like yours are very accessible and kind of like pull apart the human condition in a fun way, where it's like here's an outsider learning about why, people do what they do, and it's in you think about like all the shit we're used to because like we've grown up with it. But then if someone from another culture came from another planet and was like, well,
Yeah.
why do you do that? And it's like, oh,
Well,
yeah,
there's
everyone
this
did it before.
there's this thing that okay, so like that story about the autistic kid they took up in a helicopter and they did like a 360 of like this German city that he lived in. They took him back to the place he lived and they put paper all over the walls and he said because he's an artist and he redrew from like a 360 line drawing of the city, and it was accurate down to all the windows. Like he was up there, took a look around, and it was just in his head, and he came back
Wow.
down and reproduced it. And they one of the I don't know, the theories of how or why autistic people are the way they're so shut down is because there's some filter that's broken and it all comes in.
Mm.
And so if you're walking around and all of that information is 100% accessible, just pounding your brain, that'll shut you down. Just like, and if people, hi there, oh shit, someone's waving, and I'm seeing every fingernail and every hair and the tenor of their voice and the color of their eyes, and you can't answer, you can't. So I think to function, we walk around with a super narrow, blinded perspective on the reality that's out there. Okay, that's one piece of the next thing I'm going to say that fits. And so for a while, I was doing a series called The Walking Mage, and I thought I'm going to do political satire. There's all this darkness and evil and bad things in the world, and I have to let people know. Otherwise, how are they going to make correct choices? And so I was doing it through, and it was funny, but it was biting humor.
Mm.
And by the end of it, it was getting more and more intense. And I got to the end of one strip and I found like my knuckles were at the edge of the chair just white and I'm just like, oh, this people have to read. And my girlfriend at the time was like, I don't think that's healthy. She says, what do you mean? She says, look at you. Like, you know, are you helping or harming the world? People have to know. I says, well, yeah, but are you fixing the solution? People, you can't fix it without. No, people are aware of this stuff, Mark. We all know.
Mm.
You know, the dice are all loaded. We all know this. Everybody knows, right?
Yes.
What do you do? What are you going to do about it? Like, one of the reasons I love you is that your vision of reality is like, out of all that information, you're seeing the positive and the potential and the humanness, and not everyone can see that. And maybe it would be a good idea to distill that down and show just that slice of reality so that people, when they go through their dark days, can have this and realize that that's also there, and maybe put energy into that, because that matters as well. The thing you focus on becomes, what is it? Your focus becomes your reality. It's the
Yeah.
Jedi credo, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right, canceling the strip. So I wrapped it up and started Star Drop, and that was what Star Drop was all about.
Oh, lovely. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I'm going to suggest a movie for you if you like old movies. It's called Sullivan's Travels. It's
I've
Preston's.
never seen it, but I've heard of it.
So, and I literally just watched it recently, and it actually resonated with me in a really profound way. In that I'm like, I like to read a lot. I don't necessarily identify as an intellectual, but I certainly uh, I wouldn't say worship, but elevate people that I consider,
Hmm.
intellectuals in a way that you're like, well, real art is the art that gets to the heart of human condition and the pain and the viscera and the grossness of being
Yes.
human and the darkness in all of us. And like, and the story sort of follows this famous film writer who, it's funny because it was the first. Sturgis was a famous film writer and then directed his first movie, which was this one.
Hmm.
And the film writer is like this big celebrity film writer that writes all these goofy comedies that everybody loves.
Hmm.
And he's sick of that. He wants to do a story based on a dark novel called Oh Brother Where Art Thou, which is where the Coen brothers got the name
Oh,
for their
okay. Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
But anyway, so it's about the poor and the destitute, and he really wants to tell this tragedy story. And like all the people that work for him are like, well, like that he works with in the studios, like, well, you grew up as a privileged person, you don't know what it's like to live this sort of life. And he's
Hmm.
like, you're right, so I'm going to go live this life. So he kind of like dress up like a hobo, gets a bindle, and goes off to kind of join the homeless people and sort of learn about the true what it takes to be horrible, or what it takes to like not be horrible. Sorry, that's not the right word, but
That's fine.
to live in the horrible
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To live in
society.
that
Yeah.
side of reality. Yeah.
And so anyway, through a series of events, some comical, some mostly comedic in its own right, but he ends up getting stuck in a place where he can't get out. He can't go back to his old life. He's stuck being in prison
Okay.
essentially,
Uh-huh.
and seeing what prisoners have to deal with. And there's this profound moment where he, they bring out a Goofy cartoon. This is like way back when, because
Yeah,
this
yeah.
movie's like in the 50s or 40s. So and he's looking at all these hardened, miserable prisoners that he's breaking rocks with every day, and they're
Uh-huh.
laughing and they're finding joy, and it sort of realizes that like that for some people, the people that are in rough places in life, all they really have is laughter, and that like there's nothing diminished about art that makes people happy. It's not less art because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's it's people see it as less because it's not so deep and so dark. But in a way, there's a certain joy and a certain need for people to just be able to laugh and enjoy themselves. And
Those are the three teacups, because it
yeah,
started off he was doing something mindlessly and then he saw that existential crisis time, then he goes back, okay, I'm back to where I started from, but
yeah.
I understand it now. Yeah.
But it kind of stuck with me in a way because as someone who loves a lot of like movies and books and
What was that
you
movie
know
called?
Sullivan's Travels.
Sullivan's Travels. Okay, I'm writing
Yeah.
that down here.
It's really good. It's I have the Criterion Blu-ray, but I'm sure you
I
can find it out
I'll
there
remember
somewhere.
that. Yes. That's
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it just always resonated with me, and because it's someone that like when I just got back from Mexico, I was on a trip there, just a resort with my wife,
Okay.
and I read 3 books in 6 days. I was very happy. So just sitting on the beach, reading books, swimming, drinking, smoking cigars. I had a
Uh,
blast. But I read like a Kurt Vonnegut book that I've always wanted to read.
oh, which one?
Science of Titan.
Okay.
I've read Slaughterhouse-Five. I've read Breakfast of Champions and God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater, but I'm working my way through it. I directed a play of his years ago, Happy Birthday 1 to June, that I was in as well. But I really like him a lot. And
Uh-huh.
but I'm kind of like slowly reading it because I don't want to read it all at once, and then I have no more
Yeah,
to
yeah.
read.
Right.
But I read that and it's very heady and but it's funny and heady and gets to the heart of some dark human stuff, but makes it funny.
Mm,
And then I read like this really visceral horror novel called The Deep. It's by this Canadian writer that did a book before called The Troop, which is
okay.
pretty popular. But very kind of Eldritch horror-esque, like brushing up against that.
Yeah.
Something dark and deeper and older than humanity at the bottom of the ocean that people tap into. And then the
Okay.
last book I was like, well, I got to read. There's this book called Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is like which is very popular right now because of these audiobooks based on it, but they've only started putting them into print books.
Okay.
So, and it's about the Earth gets destroyed,
Uh-huh.
and aliens seed the Earth with humans, like DNA and stuff, way back when. Let humanity get to a certain point where our society is. Then they basically raise it all to take the resources they want, and then
Uh-huh.
the humans that are left have to fight in essentially live action Dungeon Dragons, where
Okay.
like they go into a underground into a dungeon, and then they have to work their way down to levels. So if they make it to the 18th level and win, they get all these riches and get to survive. But it follows this one guy who him and his ex-girlfriend's cat get stuck in there. The cat, like, you level up and get powers and armor and
Okay.
weapons, and you have an inventory that's like way bigger than you could actually carry, and all these things that are like real life. And he's navigating this with other survivors, trying to fight the monsters within, and there's like guides that help you along the way. And but it was a very fun. It does have some darkness to it, but it's a very fun sort of more accessible thing. And I got such joy from reading that after reading all this heady
Yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
There's room for all of that, and there should be. And I try not to get bogged down in the like it needs to be some dark gritty thing for it to be true art.
Yeah.
True art can be anything. It could be everything. It should be.
Well, I find like the humor is informed by the awareness of the dark. I spend a lot of time reading nonfiction,
Hmm.
and I've been on this revisiting the CIA's roots kick recently,
Hmm.
and I'm rereading like for the third time. I'm reading this one that was about was it Frank Olson? He was a chemistry guy working on the early LSD stuff, and he was kind of
Oh
like
yes, yeah.
so he was like, MK Ultra kind of grew out of his work, and he was murdered basically by the state, but no one admitted that for 30 years, and just reading all about, and it's such it's a horrifying world, but
Mhm.
I'm sort of weirdly fascinated by it, and having that knowledge in my head amongst all the other stuff. So when it comes time to draw a little strip about Craig getting a crank call, you can couch it in a reality that's there, but you don't necessarily have to show. And it's sort of like that's the ground reality upon which the paint sort of sits. And so if you don't have that, I find people humorists who are not also realists aren't very funny.
No,
And maybe that's a generalization that's not true, but that's just saying it out and going, no, that sounds real. I feel like people who have really lived can be like Richard Pryor had a really, really rough life, and but he was hilarious. And
yeah.
so and I feel like Joe Rogan, he's a comedian, but there's a guy who's really plugged into the real world, and
Mhm.
he's experienced a lot of things that you have to be strong to kind of get through. And so when you're able to bring your humor up, it comes from somewhere, and you can
Yeah.
shave out all the darkness or whatever you want, and just here's something that's great. And it's there's a reality to it that makes it funny. So
Well,
no, I
it's
think
kind of
yeah.
like that Joker thing from the Killing Joke, where it's like, life is just so ridiculous. Like World War I started because of an argument over where telephone poles go.
Is that right?
Well, part of it is,
Okay.
there's bigger things, but that was one of
I don't remember that line, but
yeah. And it was
yeah.
like you think about all this death and destruction that comes from something so mundane and ridiculous, you almost just have to laugh because what else can you do?
Oh, I
Um,
grew up in, I was privileged in sort of a chronological way. Like I
mhm,
was 17 when The Killing Joke came out, and I
mhm.
was working at that animation place, and Ty Templeton, Batman artist, was there, and we were all handing this comic around, and it was like such. And I remember like reaching. It's kind of like imagine watching Planet of the Apes for the very first time, and they ride around the beach, and there's the Statue of Liberty's hand sticking out. You realize it was us all along, and like, but not being prepared for that. Like, can
Mhm.
you imagine being in that
Yeah.
audience? And
Yeah.
and so I had a bunch of those experiences. Like I got the Watchmen experience. Like, wow, what a great conclusion! And then the Killing Joke, where it's like you wouldn't expect the last panel to be, you know, Batman and the Joker holding each other as they laugh
Yeah.
because they're just overwhelmed by it. And it was, oh wow, whew, that's intense stuff. That's great,
Yeah, more could tap into that. One other one that I always found was like such a like one of my favorite comics was the what the like Moore's kind of capping off of the Superman story for what is it whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, like that two-parter that he did that sort of wraps up the Golden Age Superman when they did the
Okay,
Crisis
you're
on Infinite
you're
Earths.
gonna have to describe it to me because I
Oh
haven't
wow,
read that. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
full of like really it's like it kind of wraps up Superman's story in the Golden Age version of Superman. Where like, he has like this final battle with Luthor and with all this other stuff. Actually quite a few elements of it came from this well, I don't know if they did specifically, although they overlap quite a bit to the point that I'm a little suspicious. There's this book called Super Folks that came out like in the 70s about there's a parody superhero book that goes into some dark stuff, and quite a few elements of it that are in that book kind of seed into Alan Moore stuff. Like
Mhm.
there's a character like Miracle Man is very there's some stuff in it that's very much out of it, like a guy like Billy Batson that says Shazam, but then the part of him the Shazam part becomes evil,
Mm.
and the kid can't say the word anymore because he's afraid he'll let him back out.
Oh wow.
And then there's like, but in the Superman story, it's basically like, it's almost it's hard to describe. It just they really incorporate a lot of like real world darkness into what like the lightness of Superman and how Superman deals with that. Like Crypto dies saving him, and there's all this other stuff, but it's like the Kryptonite Man and all these other kind of old tired characters, and they sort of show what happens. Like Mr. Mixoplick is sort of the
Okay.
big one behind it, and there's sort of an interesting take on what like a being like him, what it would be like. And they sort of say, well, for so many years, I lived for eternity. So for so many years, I just was nothing. I laid on a beach and I was a piece of sand. And then
Hmm.
for another 8,000 years, I tried to be a good guy. I went around being a superhero in different universes. Then I tried to be a trickster. So I became the Mr. Mixelplick, where I went around and became a goofball. And now I'm going full evil. And this is what I am. And it is what that looks like and how horrifying that is. It's just a two-parter, but it's a really, really good story. But it's just like seeing this bright superhero stuff you're so familiar with and then getting that injection of reality in it.
Okay,
It was
I gotta make some notes here. So I like this. I love talking. I'm a man who lives on a mountain with two dogs. I don't
Oh
get
man.
so let's see here. Oh, is my touch screen on? It is. That's a problem. We don't like touch screens. When I'm trying to touch the screen
All
and
right,
not make
whatever
it move.
happened to the
Okay,
Man of Tomorrow by Alan Moore.
whatever happened to the man of tomorrow? Whoops, two M's. There we go. I think I spelled tomorrow incorrectly. It's fine. I think I got it. There we go. And Alan, was it
Alan
Alan
Moore.
Moore?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And what was that movie? You've told it to me twice now. I've forgotten it both times.
Oh, well, when sorry? What was it?
The one about the filmmaker who had to
Oh,
end up
Sullivan's Travels.
Sullivan Travel. This is great.
That's a great movie.
My favorite fiction tends to come from talking to people who say you have to read this, and sometimes I despair that I've read it all. It's all gone. But these are two things I've never heard of, and that's fantastic. My love affair with the Dresden Files came from a
Yeah,
conversation like this.
I gotta look those up. That sounds really cool. Didn't they made a show of that not that long ago?
It was a while ago now, and it was
It's the guy from Arrow, I think, wasn't it? The played
the I think they got
the
a
top one.
season out of it. The fellow who recommended the books to me said that it was tragically underfunded, stupidly written, and it just don't you'll hurt your brain. Your soul will die a little bit if you watch it. So don't. So I said, okay, I'm gonna trust that as well. I'm gonna believe my friends.
Well,
So
I'm gonna
apparently,
make one more suggestion for you
okay,
then.
please do, please do.
So you'll probably have to download this because I don't know where you'd find it unless you have HBO Max or something. It might be on that.
My
But
girlfriend, or my wife's got all the channels.
oh, great. So there's an HBO movie that came out in like the early 90s. It's called Cast a Deadly Spell. Um,
Cast.
it's it stars Fred Ward, who you might know from Tremors.
Okay.
But
Oh, I love Tremors. We just
yeah,
recently watched that again. Yeah.
he's not Kevin Bacon, the other guy.
Okay. Okay.
So anyway, he plays it's sort of a 1950s noir detective story in a world where magic exists. So like he's just a detective, hardboiled detective wearing the outfit. His name's Harry Lovecraft. And
Interesting.
and
Okay.
he like gets a case that he has to solve, but in this world there are orcs and goblins and witches and monsters that just sort of walk around and part of society and magic users and everything else. But he has to solve a case in this world, and it's a movie I saw when I was really young, and I loved it. It was really really good and very interesting, and it's very much like what you're describing the Dresden Files as.
It's
So
really neat. I one of the reasons um well, okay, so Jim Butcher, who wrote the Dresden Files,
mhm.
was in Halifax, left. I missed him, and I didn't know this at the time, and it would have made me wish that I'd known it if I'd gone to meet him. That's anyway. Basically, I figured out one of his influences. It
Mhm.
sounds like he probably saw this cast a deadly spell thing,
No, maybe yeah. It's a
because
really cool movie.
he's unashamedly influenced by things. He just doesn't talk about it. But when you
Mhm.
run across, like I was reading a what's his name? What's his name? Not Clifford D. Simak. It was one of the sci-fi authors from like sort of the 60s. And he wrote uh oh my God, which is the one where we're fighting the bugs.
Oh, Robert Heinlein,
Robert Heinlein, thank
Starship
you.
Troopers. Yeah.
Yes. This is your relationship with me and my relationship with everyone else. Like going, that thing with the thing, and they'll go such and such. But yes, like for some reason, everyone I know is just so brilliant. They're able to get the
Not
right
no
answer.
no. There'll be many times I won't be able to clip
But
that.
Heinlein wrote a series, or just I read. He's written so many things, so I just picked one of his novels, read it. It's got this has a really strong Dresden Files vibe to it. In fact, similar catchphrases are coming up, and I feel like, huh. I'm almost certain that he was influenced. So I'm looking around a little bit. Oh, he's another. This one's about magic. He's not just a sci-fi guy. I'm reading it going, oh yeah, he was one like Butcher read this and didn't just wasn't just influenced by it. He was influenced in the best way.
Mm.
He was clearly like he got the hairs were standing on his neck up, and he was just like, oh, I love this so much. Like that would be my experience with Miyazaki
Mm.
and a lot of sort of some of the anime that filtered to the West that had a powerful influence on me. And I find that that's one of the joys in fiction and media is learning about the influences that make everything come together because no one writes in isolation, you know.
No.
And I think it's very very cynical for people to think like you stole that idea from me. Going, no, he loved that idea and just couldn't not. You performed your job successfully as an author by making someone resonate so powerfully that they actually moved the switches and gears of their life around to try and replicate something close
Yeah.
to what you've done. It's like, wow, what a joy, you
Yes,
know?
I agree, 100%. I said this. I watched was it the remake of the Salem's Lot that came out recently,
Okay.
and I was like I wish I lived more in a world like I wish I lived back in the day when someone would watch Salem's Lot and said, "Man, I love that movie or I love that book." Read the book, say, and say, "I'm going to go make something like that."
Yeah.
Instead of now, it just goes, "Let's just make that again."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just why? Just go be influenced by it, use it to make something new. Don't just keep remaking the same thing 9 times. I mean,
What are you watching right now? Like, I mean, there's series being made all the time. Some come, some go. But is there anything that's in your current like you're waiting for the next episode?
well, I just finished a series. I watched Baby Reindeer on Netflix. Did you watch that?
Nope.
Oh, it's good. It's dark, but it's about it's based on a guy, the guy that wrote it and directed it. All this stuff actually happened to him, and it's about him getting it. Like he worked in a bar, and he's a stand-up comedian in England, and he got a stalker, like a woman that started stalking him, and
Okay.
sort of about his relationship with this woman, and also how it kind of brings to light some stuff that happened to him with like sexual abuse in the entertainment industry
Hmm.
early on. But it's a dark and darkly funny in some places sort of story about human connection. The thing I'm most looking forward to watching probably is the next season of Fargo, which I haven't watched yet, the TV show.
Oh, I've
If
heard
you haven't
that.
watched any of the show, watch it all. It's so good.
How close is it to the movie? I've had this discussion with people. Like I saw the movies that this is very, very good, but it's not my Coen brothers. It's like
Oh,
I'm more into the Oh Brother, where are the,
yep, that's fine. Actually,
and
one of my all-time favorite movies. Like I have two favorite movies. One is like my favorite movie for like all the things that make me me, like where I was in
mhm.
my life when I saw it, what it means to me, how much I love it. And then one
It was
that
a Coen
I
brothers film, eh?
oh no, that's no. The other one is. The other one is like this is artistically
Okay.
in my point the best movie ever made. You know, like as far as like the
Oh,
style.
wonderful. Yeah, yeah,
So there's
yeah.
ones that I love because of things that are connected to me personally, and one that I objectively can say this is the best movie ever made. That one is No Country for Old Men,
I
which
haven't
but
seen it. I haven't
oh,
seen it. This is that's actually on my little other list. I
but that's the
because
opposite of their like
yeah,
Hudsucker Proxy
sure, sure,
fun
sure.
type of stuff. And the one that's just because I love it for me is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That movie
Okay.
is to me the best.
Really?
Yeah, I love that movie.
I was studying illustration and I was in the no, I was Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out when I was in this romance period with animation, and it was a
Hmm.
very, very exciting time.
I talked
Uh,
to Gary K. Wolf, the guy that wrote the book on here,
okay.
which is very very cool for me because I'm a big fan. But that movie, I don't know, it has everything. Like the way I described it says it's literally so many genres wrapped up into one. It's a period piece. It's a detective story. It's kind of a romance. There's animation. There's live action. It's scary. I mean, when Judge Doom is terrifying at certain points.
I
Um, it just kind of has
yeah.
everything wrapped up into one. Like
I
it's
remember my reaction to it. I don't know if I was expecting something different, but I came out of it thinking, "Oh, okay, I get it. I get it." But but the first what 2 3 minute that little cartoon where it's
yep,
all animation and he's in the kitchen and there's that
yep.
friggin' baby.
Davey
I
Herman.
don't I don't know if anyone's ever done anything that great before or since.
Yeah.
Like just like a million miles of like black and white tiled square kitchen floor going by as he's trying to catch your baby and there's
Yeah.
knives flying around and
And he
boiling
hits the
water.
wall and the knife just goes between the ears, you know, like all that stuff's so good. Yeah, but the Coen brothers are like they're directors that I everything they
Yeah.
do cool to me. They are one of them. Even the
Yeah.
first movie, Blood Simple, is like a masterpiece by most people's respect.
I what was it? What was the gangster one they did?
Miller's Crossing.
Millings. I love that one. Brilliant. I tried showing it to my wife though, and she loves gangster movies.
Really?
We couldn't get 15 minutes into it. She goes, "This is none of this happened. This is all make believe." It's like,
Oh, she
huh.
only likes real gangster movies.
Well, she real watch stories. Like there was one that Johnny Depp was in, and it was like
Oh,
The
Public
Irishman, or
Enemies.
I can't remember. I think it was called The Irishman,
Oh,
or
that's the Martin Scorsese one with Robert De Niro.
okay, maybe it's not that
It's
one.
like a 4 hour movie. It's
They're
on
all
Netflix.
yeah, they're all like
Yeah.
all that level, but it's so
Oh
the
no, the Johnny Depp one is a Black Mass. That one.
that's it. Yeah, Black Mass.
Yeah, yeah.
Holy, I
Whitey
couldn't
Bulger.
watch
Yeah.
all of that. I
Yep.
got halfway through that, and his level of dark was so dark. I was like, okay, I'm out. I can't do it. I get it. No, I understand. Goodbye. I just whew.
I like that director a lot. His name's Scott Cooper.
Oh, I'm not brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Like the craft was there. I could recognize this is a great movie, but it's too effective because my soul is running in fear. Like just like that scene where he's at that family. He kind of lets himself into the family dinner, and he's trying to get the guy. Says, "How did you make this?" Oh, it's a old family secret. I can't tell you. No, no, go on, tell me. Nah, go on, tell me. All right, it's garlic and a twist of lemon and a bit of sugar. That's your family secret, and you just told me, and now he's like how. Like you said that with your very words were it's an old family secret and you can't and you just let it out like that and you're like this guy's gonna die. I'm watching this and everyone's just like, that was
Yeah.
brilliant. But
He did a
yeah.
really cool movie on Netflix called The Pale Blue Eye, which is based on Edgar Allan Poe. At one point in his life,
Oh yeah.
when he was a young man, he went to military academy, and
Okay.
it's about him in a military academy solving a murder, being conscripted by a local law guy played by Christian Bale to solve a murder, and
Huh.
it's a really cool movie. He
Uh,
also did a movie I really like. It's a horror movie called Antlers, which is like I'm really sort of enamored with the Wendigo myth. Like
oh, that's interesting.
as far as monsters go, I feel like it's one of those ones that hasn't been mined a lot in movies. It's been in a few, but Antlers does a really cool take on it, and it kind of makes the whole thing an allegory for like drug abuse, like a dad with like a problem,
Okay.
and sort of letting this thing in and then becoming. But the design for the creature is really interesting, and when you finally see it, and it's just Felicity.
Felicity Day or
No,
Felicia
no.
Day? No, no, not
She
her.
was
Okay.
on the show Felicity, that actress.
All
I
right,
don't
all right.
remember her
Okay.
name. The her and Jesse Plemons are in it, but it's super good.
Okay.
Cool. So is next the UPS the U print and ship comic?
We
Is that what's
we
on the go
will
now?
it's what I'm currently working on.
Yeah, that's
I
great. I'm
feel
excited to read these. These are awesome.
I
Awesome.
think they're fun. I think there's basically I think there might be a way to I just want to reach an audience because if you're
Mhm.
working in isolation and you have like I feel like I've got some interesting insights that might be valuable in the world
Mhm.
and I just feel like as a writer illustrator it's my job to broadcast and be seen and heard and make sure I do a good job of that because why else am I what this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And the way the industry has reshaped itself and reforms from when I began is it's like unrecognizable. I mean, Diamond, they just was it they're bankrupt now, but I'm
Yeah,
sort of so distanced from that model that I'm not sure it matters so much. So
not
this is
really.
my, well, I mean, I know a little bit about it. I feel anyway. The comics as this is my attempt to find an audience that will enjoy what I do. And I think, oh, it's a corporate, it's a captured audience. Everyone has to go to work and they're going to read about themselves. And there's got to be tens of thousands of employees. Done. Has anyone ever done this before? I'm going to do it in a way, and they're not even asking me. I'm just this is maybe a way of finding an audience, and whether or not that turns into an income, that's questionable. But I tend not to worry so much about that because I feel like if you what do they say? Uh, do what you love until people love what you do,
Yeah,
and I
that's
feel
good.
like this, yeah. So I mean, being older and cynical, I can definitely see pathways to monetization, but
Well, it's never
th-
been more easy than it is now to put your thing out there. Like, you can literally publish it through Amazon, and then not saying you should do that, but like they just print a book as needed.
yeah,
Like instead of having 1,000 of them, and then you can order so many and get them cheaper for you to go take them to events or whatever. Or you can do it on, Patreon, which a lot of people are doing, which I think I saw that you have one as well.
yeah.
And you can do like, the Kickstarter. Like it's never been more, and it seems like a lot of comic projects on Kickstarter do really well. So it
Yes.
seems like there's never been a better time for you to get your own thing out there. You just have to have the idea and the time and the wherewithal and gumption to do it.
There's a couple of pieces to that formula, and I've been studying this one like my whole professional life,
Mhm.
and yeah, the bar to entry is extremely low, and so you get lots of entrants, and you get like what's the like 2% is gonna make it anywhere, and a 2% of that 2% is gonna make anything significant. Like you can live off it, right? That's my
Mhm.
goal. I want to be able to live off something. So how do you get to that point, and what are the things you need to do? And I looked at a lot of the Kickstarter, GoFundMe kind of projects, and the life cycle. Because I guess over the past 5 years, we've sort of really seen how that can work with sort of a new set. Like prior to that, there was web comics were had its own, I don't know, morning, noon, and night. They had all four seasons, and now it's not a thing anymore.
Mhm.
And so, what do we learn from that? And what do we learn from the last one? Is that you'll see that the comic isn't really the product. It's the support mechanism. And
Mhm.
so what's the product? Well, you see people with YouTube channels, with people running podcasts like what you're doing. This is where all the real attention is. And you'll see these cartoons go, yeah, I got this great comic coming out. It's only going to take me 9 months to make 30 pages or whatever. And so everyone, yeah, we can't wait. Well, here's some more money. We're gonna support. And then the comic comes out. And it's almost like just a nominal. It's like I got the T-shirt,
Yeah.
but really the product was the experience leading up to
Mm.
that release and learning about the
Interesting.
personality and seeing the actual media. Like the medium is the message. Right now, print is well, no, really, because what do
No,
we
but you're
spend
right.
all
You're right. Yeah.
you know and so I'm looking at that going, all right. And so I started a YouTube channel. I had a studio, and I just realized I don't have the personality for it. I don't care enough. Or not that I don't care. It's like I don't have the right pieces didn't come together. Like I can have a conversation like this all
Yeah.
day long, but I live on a mountain, and so to relocate and make that like I really tried to sort of have regular guests on.
Mhm.
I need a co-host, just someone to have a conversation with. Could never find one. Circumstances changed. The space had to be taken down. It's just like I couldn't get it to
Mhm.
spark. It wasn't happening, right? I'm going, but the one thing I can consistently do is put out a comic strip on time.
Yep.
And so I came up with a format that I'm going, okay, this is deliberately done in such a way that I can take an idea and by the next day have a workable strip. And if I can try and get on a 4 times a month kind of schedule, which isn't a lot, but it's like 4 pages a month on top of my other duties, because I got like a little newspaper that I put a strip into, and just taking care of dogs and being a husband and driving my wife to and from work sometimes, and just it's like life is pretty full. We want to have kids. How do I balance that?
Mhm.
But I can put out comic strips to a dedicated audience, and this is my little life hack to sort of just secure a reason for existing and staying at the drafting board. Um, what was the question? I can't. I can't.
What's your next project?
Right. But here's another one. You were describing how you'd start something and then 10 years would go by and, oh, I really got to get on this. I was thinking about this one project, and I'm hesitant to open it up, but years ago, I was around, I don't know, maybe 2001. I decided I'm going to write a series of, I don't know why or where I'm going to use these, but it was a series of kind of like newspaper strips, kind of in the style of Star Drop, and maybe even shorter. And let's just write a bunch of them. I'm gonna maybe I'll draw these one day. And the thing just took off in my head, and it became this marvelous adventure story, and featuring characters that were placed in the same Thieves and Kings world, but like 1,000 years earlier, or I think it was earlier, where technology was different because physics had changed. And anyway, and it just like the characters were electric. It was, in fact, it was kind of doing things that I'd done with Stardrop, which didn't even exist at that point. But it was this girl who was going to an academy, and her, one of those, oh, I'm going to school, and my parents just sent me off here, and I'm here for 8 months of the year. It's the end of the school year. All the rich parents are coming and picking up their kids, and hers don't show up. She's just there. What the hell? And ends up having to go through it's sort of kind of the Anna Green Gables. Oh, I've been displaced and I got to go live with another family, but there's magic, and this other family has something going on, and just the way everything kind of fits together and the kinds of secrets I wanted to reveal. And I was just like, oh, I have to draw this. This is going to be the best story ever. And it's just sitting there. Maybe that would be nice to draw. I don't
Now's
know.
the time. I want to read that. That sounds amazing.
It sounds, but maybe it's
Maybe.
not the time anymore, because sometimes we have these ideas, and the reason we are excited by them is because it resonates with where the world is. That this
Yeah.
was 20 years ago. The
Yeah.
world's moved. We're not in the same place anymore, so maybe that would be irrelevant.
Well, maybe. I feel like it's. I like talking to people like yourself. Sort of jazz me up a little bit. I feel like I need to kind of build a more of a community, I guess, of people just to like bounce ideas off of and draw together and do stuff like that.
Oh,
You know?
dude,
Yeah.
you maybe you know about this. I don't know. Were you ever a fan of the Japanese side of things, like the anime and the manga?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I can't remember any of the names, but there was a period, and it was the perfect storm of creativity, where a bunch of young dudes all lived in the same boarding house, and they were all getting into comics at the same time. This is where like Astro Boy came from,
Hmm.
and I believe. And so every room in this house is like a bachelor pad, so there's empty dishes and laundry everywhere, and there's like 20 or 30 cartoonists just jamming. And not only they're creating, but they're buzzing off each other.
Hmm.
"Okay, I just did this, and oh, I'm reading, I can't Japanese name guy over here, and
Yeah,
they're just
yeah.
excited by each other's stuff. And oh, that's a good. I got to do something as good. That's the best. And so much of modern Japanese culture came out of this one house,
Mhm.
and naturally, I believe it's been memorialized. You go there and there's a placard because
Oh,
comics are
cool.
big and famous, but like that media changes the way an entire culture is shaped and thinks and behaves. I mean, our little comics industry seems kind of silly and ragtag, but it's modern mythology.
Yeah.
And so when those Marvel movies came out, I was like, this is resonating. These are the gods of our current
Yeah.
mythos. And so can you imagine living in that house as a
Uh,
cartoonist, being part of that, and
Even just
oh,
talking to guys like because I've talked to a few people that work in the Raid studio in Toronto, and all the stuff they put out together. It's just like
mm,
amazing. Like you talk to a guy who's at his desk, and over behind him you see another guy working, and they're
hmm
looking at pages and talking. It's like just I want that.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
anyway. Maybe someday I'll get a place next to yours on the mountain, and we can do comics together.
Oh my God, I keep running into guys like you, and I think, oh, if in another reality, because I've had this kind of conversation more than
Mhm.
once, and I can just maybe this isn't the time for it. Maybe, I mean, we're in such a different world now.
Yeah.
Um, maybe the time for exploring comics is we kind of did that. We've learned so many lessons about how to be heroic and how to wrestle with monsters and what the monsters look like. And now that we're in the current times, maybe it's time to take that knowledge and actually use it to survive. Because and maybe comics, maybe we're in the afterglow of what comics are supposed to be. I don't know. As an older, slightly cynical person, I sometimes worry about that. But then I wake up in the morning going, I gotta draw out with this friggin' customer. Oh, everyone's gonna laugh at this. And maybe I should draw about that girl who has to go on an adventure. And so I don't know. Anyway, I'm beginning to lose my voice.
Yes, no worries. I got to run anyway. But it was a blast talking to you, man.
Oh, always.
This is
Always our first proper time. But every time I run into him, I'm going, that dude. I got to.
Yeah, I felt that about you too. I was like, I like that guy. I don't know. I wish I could talk to him more. So it's nice to get this in. But next time I see you at an event, we'll have to
absolutely
grab dinner.
Right on. Yes, for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
All right, thank you, and have a great day or evening where you are. All right.
Yeah, you as well.
All right, take care. Bye.
There it is, the end of the saga that is the two-part conversation with Mark Oakley. Big thanks to Mark for being on the show. It was a real blast. Really, really dug talking to him, and I had a really great time. So tune in next week for another fun-filled episode in which we'll be talking with another amazing creator. I have a bunch of them in the hopper, so I'm not sure which one's next, but you will know as soon as I do when I post it up on social media. So in the meantime, stay safe, have fun, and read some comics. Also, if you're in my part of the woods, shovel some snow. There's an awful lot of it. The Graphic Histories Podcast is a proud partner of the United Federation of Podcasts.